We're about to dive into one of the most remarkable stories of reinvention in all of human history. It's the story of how Judaism, a faith once centered entirely on a single sacred building, transformed itself to survive for 2 millennia without it, by becoming a faith centered on a sacred book. And let me tell you, this profound shift changed absolutely everything. Think about it for a second. What is the sacred center of a religion? For most of them, it's a physical place, right? For Muslims, it's Mecca. For many Hindus, it's the city of Varanasi. It's a specific point on the map that's holier than any other, a place you go on pilgrimage, a focus for prayer. So what's that sacred center for Judaism? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because for Judaism, there isn't just one answer. There are two, and this duality, this is the key to understanding the entire history of the Jewish people. It makes all the difference. So that brings us to our first section, a tale of two centers. This is really a story about a fundamental tension, a clash between two very different ideas of what can hold a religion together. On one side, you've got a place, the Great Temple in Jerusalem. This was the physical heart of worship, the one spot where God's presence was believed to literally dwell on earth. But on the other side, you've got a text, the Torah. This is the portable heart of the people, the foundation of laws and stories that you could carry with you anywhere, a permanent, fixed place versus a portable, living book. For the first 1,000 years of its history, though, there was no contest. Judaism was a religion of a place, period. This was the age of the temple. For a whole millennium, Jewish life revolved around this one single location. King David made Jerusalem his capital, and his son Solomon built the magnificent First Temple. It became the undisputed center of everything. Now, it was destroyed by the Babylonians, but it was so important that it was rebuilt decades later. This Second Temple stood for centuries, until it too fell, this time to the Roman Empire, a catastrophic event in the year 70 CE. So what was this temple-based Judaism actually like? Well, it was very physical and totally centralized. You had a special class of priests who performed sacrifices of animals, grain, and oil. And this is the crucial part. The temple was the only place on earth where these essential rituals could happen. That's it, one location. The connection to this place was just incredibly deep. This line from Psalm 137, written during the Babylonian exile, just captures that profound sense of loss and longing for that physical, spiritual home. Jerusalem wasn't just a city, it was everything. And that memory endures in some really powerful ways. At the peak of a Jewish wedding celebration, a glass is shattered. Why? Well, one of the main interpretations is that even in a moment of supreme personal joy, there's a duty to remember the destruction of the temple, a collective sorrow that is never, ever forgotten. So what happens when that irreplaceable center is just gone, forever? You basically face a choice: disappear or reinvent yourself completely. This leads us to the great pivot, the shift from a place to a portable text. And the transformation was total. I mean, everything changed. The leadership shifted from priests who performed rituals to rabbis who were teachers and scholars. The core practice moved from animal sacrifice to prayer, study, and ethics. And the location of religious life moved from that one single temple to the synagogue, a house of assembly that could exist anywhere in the world. Now, the engine of this new Judaism was the Talmud. And it's so much more than a rule book. If the Torah is the core text, think of the Talmud as a massive, sprawling library of debates and interpretations by generations of rabbis about what that text actually means. It's a recorded conversation across centuries, and it became the new foundation. So here's how it happened, step by step. First, you get the crisis. The physical center is gone. Second, the pivot. Everyone focuses on the one sacred thing they have left, the Torah. Third, the innovation. Rabbis developed this system of deep interpretation to make the ancient text relevant to their new lives. And finally, the result. They build a new center, a portable homeland, right inside the pages of a book. And this new, portable Judaism is precisely what enabled the Jewish people to survive 2,000 years of wandering. And that's our next story: survival through millennia. This period is known as the diaspora, the scattering of Jews across the globe.
Without one geographic center, distinct cultures emerged. The two largest were the Ashkenazi Jews of Central and Eastern Europe and the Sephardic Jews of Spain and North Africa, who actually flourished for centuries under Islamic rule, producing incredible thinkers like the philosopher Maimonides.
But survival in the diaspora was often precarious. This long history of persecution ultimately led to the most horrifying catastrophe in Jewish history. During the Holocaust, the Shoah in Hebrew, the Nazi regime systematically murdered 6 million Jews. That was over 1/3 of the entire Jewish population on the planet. It's an almost incomprehensible tragedy. In the face of that horror, how do you go on? The philosopher Emil Fackenheim argued that after the Holocaust, survival itself became a sacred commandment. To give up on Jewish life would be to grant a posthumous victory to Hitler. The only response to destruction was a fierce commitment to Jewish life and continuity. And that brings us to our final section, Judaism in the modern world. And this is where the ancient themes of survival, text, and place all come together in new and surprising ways. In the late 19th century, partly in response to rising anti-Semitism in Europe, the political movement of Zionism emerged, with the goal of re-establishing a Jewish homeland. This all culminated in 1948 with the founding of the modern state of Israel. And as part of this project, Hebrew, a language of prayer and study for centuries, was revived. It's the only known time in history that a sacred language has become a modern, spoken national tongue.
Today, of course, Judaism isn't monolithic. The three main denominations approach tradition differently. Orthodox Judaism holds that Jewish law is binding and divinely revealed. At the other end of the spectrum, Reform Judaism sees these laws as ethical guidelines that can be adapted for modern times. And Conservative Judaism takes a middle path, viewing the law as binding but as something that has always evolved to meet new circumstances.
Which leaves us with a final, fascinating question. For 2 millennia, the genius of Judaism was its portability. It survived precisely because it wasn't tied to a single place. But now, with the State of Israel, it once again has a physical, geographic center. So what does the future hold for a faith that learned to live in a book, now that it once again has a home on the map?